As a researcher, I tend to let my curiosity be the driving force, and the truth to be the final source, regardless of the conclusions. So, my curiosity compelled me to want to know. What makes an individual a Hebrew? Well, for starters, I learned that Hebrew is not a nationality, it's a language. In fact, it's a Northwest Semitic language within the Afroasiatic language families, to be exact. So, my next question was, who is within the Afroasiatic languages family? Well, we know, the geographic distribution expands within 300 languages of this Afroasiatic family coming from the North Africa, the Horn of Africa, East Africa, Western Asia, West Africa and Malta, basically, almost exclusively native to the African continent. I covered some of this in my last video, revealing these same Afroasiatic language families was in fact the Bantu speakers migrating from east to west to north to south, which included some, Berbers, Chadics, Cushitics, Semitics, Egyptians and Omotics all unified as one. So, I know you're wondering, if Hebrew is an Afroasiatic language that originated from the continent of Africa, and that it is rooted from the Bantu expansion. Where does the mainstream Jewish history fit into all of this? Well, good question. Believe me, I tried to establish a bloodline connection between the biblical ancestors of the 12 tribes of Israel. However, I came across many roadblocks, and those roadblocks had a lot to do with tangibility. Physical evidence to support the patrilineal claims would have been a great conclusion, but it just wasn't there. So, I referred back to the Bible, specifically Genesis and Exodus, which mention various amount of Egyptian pharaohs who derived from ancient Egyptian, but the Bible never mentioned their names. That for some, has been a red flag. That's why you hear scholars generally do not recognize the biblical portrayal of the Exodus as an actual historical event. In fact, various historical pharaohs have been proposed and hypothesized as the corresponding ruler around the time of the Sea People invasion. However, I decided to just take the Jewish community, word, beliefs, and their faith, as genuine. I am not suggesting that they are the chosen ones, I am simply saying, if they proclaim to be the Hebrew Jews, I can't, and I will not, judge them for that, and neither should anyone else. At the end of the day, we are all connected. However, what we can do instead is be guided more by the genealogies to construct a reliable, more concrete and relative chronology. Such as a body, a bone fragment, or even a mummy. Yes, a mummy. Speaking of mummies, Ramesses II, commonly known as Ramesses the Great, was an Egyptian pharaoh. He was the third ruler of the 19th dynasty. Along with Thutmose III of the 18th dynasty, he is often regarded as the greatest, most celebrated, and most powerful pharaoh of the New Kingdom, which itself was the most powerful period. Ramesses II, he led several military expeditions into the Levant, where he reasserted Egyptian control over Canaan, and Phoenicia. He also led a number of expeditions into Nubia, all commemorated in inscriptions at Beit el Wali and Gerf Hussein. He celebrated an unprecedented 13 or 14 Est festivals, more than any other pharaohs. He died in 1213 BC, and his tomb was found in 1881. Mer-en-Ptah reigned from July or August 1213 BC to May 2, 1203 BC, was the fourth pharaoh of the 19th dynasty of ancient Egypt. He ruled Egypt for almost 10 years, from late July or early August 1213 BC until his death on May 2, 1203 BC, according to contemporary historical records. He was the 13th son of Ramesses II, only coming to power because all of his older brothers had died, including his full brother Khemweset dynasty, of ancient Egypt. His mummy was found in 1886. Seti II was the fifth pharaoh of the 19th dynasty of Egypt and reigned from circa 1203 BC to 1197 BC. His throne name, Userkeperu or Setipenra, means, powerful are the manifestations of Ra, the chosen one of Ra. He was the son of Mer-en-Ptah and Iset-Nofret II, and sat on the throne during a period known for dynastic intrigue and short reigns, and his rule was no different. Seti II had to deal with many serious plots, most significantly the accession of a rival king named Amenmessa, possibly a half-brother, who seized control over Thebes and Nubia, in Upper Egypt during his second to fourth regnal years. His tomb was dug into the base of a near-vertical cliff face at the head of a wadi, running southwest from the main part of the Valley of the Kings. In 1980, James Harris and Edward F. Wente conducted a series of X-ray examinations on New Kingdom pharaohs' crania and skeletal remains, which included the mummified remains of Seti II. Pharaoh Usermater Mary Amen Ramesses III is the grandson of the great Ramses II. Reigned from the 26th of March 1186 to the 15th of April 1155 BC. Considered to be the last great monarch of the New Kingdom to wield any substantial authority over Egypt. His long reign saw the decline of Egyptian political and economic power, linked to a series of invasions and internal economic problems that also plagued pharaohs before him. This coincided with a decline in the cultural sphere of ancient Egypt. However, his successful defense was able to slow down the decline, although it still meant that his successors would have a weaker military. He has also been described as a warrior pharaoh, due to his strong military strategies. He led the way by defeating the invaders known as the Sea Peoples, who had caused destruction in other civilizations and empires. He was able to save Egypt from collapsing at the time when many other empires fell during the Late Bronze Age, due to the rise of the Canaanites. However, the damage of the invasions took a toll on Egypt. Ramesses III constructed one of the largest mortuary temples of western Thebes, now called Medinet Habu. Ramesses III was the son of Setnecht and Timarines. He was assassinated in the harem conspiracy led by his secondary wife Taya and her eldest son Pen-Tawret. This would ultimately cause a succession crisis which would further accelerate the decline of ancient Egypt. He was succeeded by his son Ramesses IV, although many of his other sons would rule later. The judicial papyrus states, I quote, that Prince Pen-Tawret was brought in because he had been in collusion with Taya, his mother, when she had plotted the matters with the women of the harem. Pen-Tawret was placed before the butlers in order to be examined. They found him guilty, they left him where he was, he took his own life. End quote. Translation of the papyrus was by A. de Buck. A mummy, popularly known as the screaming mummy, was not properly mummified. No embalming fluid was used, and his body was allowed to naturally mummify, with his mouth agape and his facial muscles strained in order to make it appear as if the mummy was screaming. Whether he died screaming or whether he was made to look like that after death is unclear. Those burying him then wrapped his body in sheepskin, a material the ancient Egyptians considered to be ritually impure. The scientists performed genetic analysis, which confirmed that the screaming mummy was a son of Ramesses III. And, based on the mummy's unusual burial treatment, the researchers confirmed that it is Pen-Tawret's mummy. While the dead pharaoh Ramesses III was initially buried in a tomb in the Valley of the Kings, his mummy was moved after the robbery of his tomb. Interestingly, his mummy was dumped in the same mummy cache at Deir el-Bahari DB 320 as Pen-Tawret's. The mummies of the murdered father and his killer son rested together until the family of a man named Abd el-Rasul found the cache in the 19th century. Ramses III's sons by Isis Ta Hemjert who were found are: Prince Amenhotep was the eldest son and appointed heir of Pharaoh Ramesses III. Like his brothers, he was named after a son of Ramesses II. Unfortunately, Amenhotep died when he was only 15 years old. This facsimile copies a scene in the tomb of Prince Amenhotep in the Valley of the Queens. It shows the prince following his father, Ramesses III, who is led by the goddess Hathor. Amenhotep wears a sidelock of hair, symbolic of youth. The king wears an elaborate garment with a feather pattern and long sashes. Prince Amenhotep's well-preserved tomb, QV 55 in the Valley of the Queens was excavated by Italian archaeologists in 1903 to 1904 BC. Pharaoh Usermater Heka Mater Set Pen Amen Ramesses IV. Reigned between 1155 BCE to 1149 BCE, was the third pharaoh in the 20th dynasty of the New Kingdom of Ancient Egypt. His name prior to assuming the crown was simply Ramesses. Ramesses IV was the second son of Ramesses III, most likely named after Ramesses, the second son of Ramesses II, who also held the title of Generalissimo. Due to the three-decade rule of his father, he is believed to have been in his 40s when he took the throne. His reign has been dated between 1155 to 1149 BC. He died in 1149 BC, his mummy was found in 1898. Ramesses IV was succeeded to the throne by his 13-year-old son Ramesses V. Pharaoh Usermater Sekheperan Ret Ramesses V, was the fourth pharaoh of the 20th dynasty of Egypt, and was the son of Ramesses IV, and Dua-ten Topet. His mummy is now on display at the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization in Cairo. Pharaoh Neb-Mater Meri Amen, Ramesses VI, also known under his princely name of Amen-her-Hepshef, he was the fifth ruler of the 20th dynasty of Egypt. He reigned for about 8 years in the mid to late 12th century BC and was a son of Ramesses III, and Queen Iset-ta-hem-jurt. As a prince, he was known as Ramesses Amen-her-Khepeshef and held the titles of royal scribe and cavalry general. He was succeeded by his son, Ramesses VII Edaman, whom he had fathered with Queen Nub-hezbed. He died in 1137 BCE, his mummy was found in 1898. Duat-Hathor-hen-Uttawi, titled Adorer of Hathor, Mistress of the Two Lands, was an ancient Egyptian princess and later rose to queen. She is the daughter of Ramesses XI, last king of the 20th dynasty. Her mummy and coffins were found in the DB 320 cache along with those of several members of her immediate family. She was buried elsewhere before being moved to the cache, but the original place of burial is not known. Montuher-Khepeshef was a prince of the 20th dynasty of Egypt and one of the sons of Ramesses III, and Iset-ta-hem-jurt. He was thus a brother of Ramesses IV, Ramesses VI, Ramesses VIII, and an uncle of Ramesses V, and Ramesses VII. His mummy has not been located. However, Montu, for many years have been a legend within the Niger-Congo Bantu speakers that Montu was their great ancestor within their family totem, and they may just be right. Ramesses III. Sarcophagus is in the Louvre in Paris, its detailed lid is in the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge and his mummy, found in the Deir al-Bahri cache, is now in Cairo's Egyptian Museum. In December 2012, a genetic study was conducted by Decoded DNA, predicted using an STR predictor that Ramesses III, second pharaoh of the 20th dynasty of Egypt by using WIT, ATHES, haplogroup predictor based on YSTR values on these mummies. The subsequent DNA analysis and the testing of polymorphic autosomal microsatellite loci, provided similar results in at least one allele of each marker, confirms that both Pentawerets and the sons of Ramses III share the Y chromosome haplogroup E1b1a, M2, and 50% of their genetic material, which pointed to a father-son relationship, which in part came from Pharaoh Setnecht, the father of Ramses III, paternal Y DNA haplogroup of E1b1a, M2. Yes, you are hearing this correctly and 100% accurately. The 19th and 20th dynasty pharaohs and their sons, based on genetic analysis, confirming that they were found to have the haplogroup Y chromosomal DNA of E1b1a, which has its highest frequencies in modern populations from West Africa and Central Africa, but which is rare among North Africans and nearly absent in East Africa. Every Egyptian mummy that I mentioned above is a pharaoh, and a direct blood ancestor to a group of peoples living in the modern world today. Before I break down the lowest to the most highest basal frequencies we have living amongst us today, as the legitimate descendants to add to Pharaoh Ramesses II and Pharaoh Ramesses III, great kingdom of family totems. Before we get to the living descendants of Ramses III, E1b1a lineage. In Spain. From the city of Granada, a place in ancient times, once settled by Iberians and Romans, found was the remains of a Muslim Berber Moor, of the Cordoban Caliphate, which was an Islamic state ruled by the Umayyad dynasty, from 929 to 1031 CE. Its territory comprised of Iberia and parts of North Africa with the capital in Córdoba. This Muslim Berber Moor, Y-DNA haplogroups was E1b1a, carried from his father, and his mtDNA haplogroup H1, from his Eurasia mother. Keep that in mind. Perfect example of how you can begin to see where different admixtures of intermixing can eventually start to dilute lineages as time goes on, but it appears somehow the West and Central Africa managed to confine their original bloodline. All right. I will be breaking the results down in 4 geographical locations, starting with West Africa, Northeast and Central Africa, North Africa to Northeast, the Americans and Europe. For the Ramesses Dynasty of Pharaohs, and the blood lineage of EM2, also known as E1b1a, frequency and diversity are highest in West Africa. However, within Africa, EM2 displays a west to east as well as a south to north clinal distribution. In other words, the frequency of the haplogroup E decreases as one moves from Western and from the Ramesses dynasty region. This is important to know. These Upper Egypt descendants are comprised with a combination of EM2, and a collective percentage of Nubian Egyptian at 67.6%, with the addition of Eastern Tutsis at 80%, and Kenyans at 52% from the Bantu bidirectional migration. Descendants of the Y chromosome haplogroup E1b1a-V38 migrated across the Sahara from east to west, possibly around 19,000 years ago. The EZ5994, EV43 descendants M2, mutations are, DYS271 DSY81, M291, P1 per Newton 1, P189.1, and P293.1. The discovery of 2 SNPs V38 and V100 by Trombetta. 2011 significantly redefined the EV38 phylogenetic tree. This led the authors to suggest that EV38 may have originated in East Africa. V38 joins the West African affiliated EM2 and the Northeast African affiliated EM329 with an earlier common ancestor who, like EP2, may have also originated in East Africa, most likely Eritrea. The downstream SNP EM180 may have originated in the humid south-central Saharan savanna grassland of North Africa between 14,000 BP. The distribution of these markers in other parts of Africa has usually been explained by the Bantu migrations. EM2 haplogroup is found at low to moderate frequencies in North Africa and Northeast Africa. Some of the lineages found in these areas are possibly due to the Bantu expansion or other migrations. However, the discovery in 2011 of the EM2 marker that predates EV38 has led Trombetta to suggest that EM2 may have originated in East Africa. In Eritrea and most of Ethiopia, excluding the Anuak Ethiopians, EV38 is usually found in the form of EM329, which is autochthonous, while EM2 generally indicates Bantu migratory origins, which is a more ancient lineage. As we go outside of Africa, the transatlantic slave trade brought people to North America, Central America and South America, including the Caribbean, as well as the indigenous people that migrated to the Americas. Consequently, the haplogroup is often observed in the United States populations in men who self-identify as African Americans. It has also been observed in a number of populations in Mexico, the Caribbean, Central America, and South America among people of African descent. And lastly, the EM2 clade has been found at its lowest frequencies in West Asia. A few isolated occurrences of EM2 have also been observed among populations in southern Europe, such as Croatia, Malta, Spain and Portugal. In 2011, the collected data through bioinformatics, analyzed, and confirmed, 56 ethnic groups around the world today, are closely related and are direct bloodline descendants to both ancient Egyptians Pharaoh Ramses II and Ramses III. I will go from the lowest frequency descendants to the most highest basal descendants, starting with number 56. Northeast Africa. Sudanese of Northeast Africa may include Hausa migrants, at 0.9%. 4 out of 445 subjects tested positive. Number 55. Southern Europe. Aeolian people of the islands in Italy at 1.2%. 1 out of 8. Number 54. Southern Europe. Jordanians at 1.4%. 2 out of 139. Number 53. West Asia. Sri Lanka India Peninsula at 1.4%. 9 out of 638. Number 52. North Africa. Tunisian people of North Africa at 1.4%, 2 out of 148. Number 51. East Africa. Somalia nationals may include Bantu minorities 1.5%, 3 out of 201. Number 50. West Asia. Southern Iranis at 1.7%, 2 out of 117. Number 49. West Asia. Cypriots Turkish Greeks at 3.2%, 2 out of 62. Number 48. North Africa. Sahrawi people of Morocco at 3.5%, 1 out of 29. Number 47. South America. Alagoas people in Brazil 4.45%, 11 out of 247. Number 46. West Asia. Yemenis Arabs at 4.8%, 3 out of 62. Number 45. West Asia. The United Arab Emiratis at 5.5%, 9 out of 164. Number 44. North America. Nicaraguans at 5.5%, 9 out of 165. Number 43. North America. Dominicans at 5.69%, 2 out of 26. Number 42. North Africa. North Central Morocco at 5.8%, 4 out of 69. Number 41. South America. Several populations of Colombians at 6.18%, 69 out of 1116. Number 40. Southern Europe. Omanis of the Arabian Peninsula at 6.6%, 8 out of 121. Number 39. Southern Europe. Saudi Arabians at 6.6%, 11 out of 157. Number 38. North Africa. Moroccan Arabs at 6.8%, 3 out of 44 and 1.9%, 1 out of 54. Number 37. North Africa. Egyptians of North Africa tested 3 times, the first at 1.4%, 2 out of 147, the second time, 0 out of 73, at 0.0%, and the third tested 3 out of 36, at 8.33%. Number 36. North Africa. Oran people from Algeria at 8.6%, 8 out of 93. Number 35. West Africa. Tuareg from Gassi of Mali at 9.1%, 1 out of 9. Number 34. East Africa. Berbers, southern and north-central Morocco at 9.5%, 6 out of 63. Number 33. South America. Cubans 9.8%, 13 out of 132. Number 32. East Africa. Iraqi people at 11.11%, 1 out of 9. Number 31. East Africa. Maasai people of Kenya at 15.4%, 4 out of 26. Number 30. West Africa. Cape Verdean people at 15.9%, 32 out of 201. Number 29. West Africa. Tuareg from Goram Goram, Burkina Faso 16.6%, 3 out of 18. Number 28. South America. Bahia people in Brazil at 19%, 19 out of 100. Number 27. North America. Puerto Ricans at 19.23%, 5 out of 26. Number 26. East Africa. Comoros people of Mozambique at 23.46%, 69 out of 294. Number 25. East Africa. Antesaka of Madagascar at 37.5%, 3 out of 8. Number 24. East Africa. Shirazi people of Comoros at 41%. Number 23. North Africa. Tuareg from Al Awaynat, and Intihala Libya both at 46.5%, 20 out of 43. Number 22. East Africa. Marina people also called Highlanders in Madagascar at 44%, 4 out of 9. Number 21. West Africa. Tuareg from Tanout, Niger 44.4%, 8 out of 18 subjects tested. Number 20. South Africa. Tutsi people of Rwanda at 32% to 48%. Number 19. East Africa. Antanozi of Bezaha at 48.9%, 23 out of 47. Number 18. North America. The Bahamians at 58.63%. Number 17. East Africa. Luo people of Tanzania at 66%, 6 out of 9. Number 16. East Africa. The Antandroids of Madagascar at 69.6% frequency. Number 15. North America. The self-identified African Americans at 7.9 to 70% frequency. Number 14. West Africa. Nalu people of Guinea at 71%. Number 13. South Africa. Herero Bantus in South Africa at 71%. Number 12. West Africa. Balanta people of Cape Verde at 73%. Number 11. West Africa. Fula people from Guinea-Bissau at 73%. Number 10. East Africa. Kikuyu people of Kenya at 73%. Number 9. West Africa. Bijagos people of Guinea-Bissau at 76%. Number 8. West Africa. Ganda Bantus of Uganda at 77%. Number 7. West Africa. The Senegalese of Senegambia at 81% frequency. Number 6. South Africa. The Ovambo Bantus of South Africa at 82% frequency. Number 5. West Africa. The Fanti people of Ghana at 84% frequency. Number 4. West Africa. The Mandinka people of southern Mali at 79% to 87% frequency. Number 3. West Africa. The Yoruban of Nigeria at a 93.1% frequency. Number 2. East Africa. The Hutu Bantus of Rwanda at a 94.2% frequency. And the number 1 spot with a three-way tie, forming the highest frequency descendants will be in West Africa, starting with the Awe people of Ghana at a 97% frequency. Awe people history. The U are traced to Oyo, Nigeria, at least as far back as the 13th century CE. They were originally called the Dogbo people. Their own oral history teaches that they came originally from Egypt, South Sudan, and Ethiopia in the 11th century in a series of migrations that eventually settled in Ghana in the 17th century. One important Awe historical mythos is the story of Togbi Sali. He was a legendary hunter and priest who was a historical person, the twin brother of Sala. Togbi Sali worked miracles, for example, causing plants to grow and bear edible fruit in just one day. His story begins in the 1600s. Before the Awe people moved to their present locations in West Africa, they lived in the city of Natsi in what is today the country of Togo. Natsi was ruled by a cruel dictator named Togbi Agirkali, who forbade all free speech, held kangaroo courts, and issued death sentences for the most minor of imagined offenses. The Awe people suffered under his cruel yoke until they asked Togbi Sali to help them. He enchanted the drums played at a public ceremony, and the U people's oppressors fell asleep. He then guided them, walking backwards to confuse their enemies, through a crack in a thick mud wall, then to freedom. They were then led by a wise shaman named Torgbui Iwenya into their current lands. In fact, the name Awe comes from the name Iwenya. The heart of U society is the family unit. Lineage, leadership, inheritance, and chiefdom are all patrilineal, passing down from fathers to sons. Families, as well as U society in general, is very communal in terms of politics, economics, and social interaction. In fact, private enterprise and profiteering are frowned upon. Neighbors truly care for one another and help out other members when they are in need. This strong and communal social bond is one major reason why the Awe people have maintained their cultural adhesion and identity despite their arbitrary colonial division. West Africa with the Ga people of Ghana at a 97% frequency. The origin of the Ga people. The Ga people belong to the Ga Dagbi group of Kawa people who inhabit the greater Accra region of present-day Ghana. The Kawa people of Africa include the Ga Dagbi, Awe, Akwapim, Fanti, Kwahu, and Akim and Ashanti. According to their legends, Ga people migrated from Nigeria, some that they were part of Israel migrated southward through present-day Uganda, then along the Congo River, westward through Cameroons, Nigeria, Benin, Togo and finally to Greater Accra. Given that Africans have roamed the continent for thousands of years and that such migrations might have been northward, southward, eastward or westward, the origin of any group of people in Africa may be very uncertain. Any African might have relatively originated from anywhere in Africa. The cited origin might as well be remembered about the recent past and not the ultimate origin. For example, the Wolof name for a king is Pharaoh, which is very similar to the word pharaoh of ancient Egypt and may point to the Egyptian heritage of the Wolof in West Africa. The Egyptian word for the highest god and righteous father was Ra, and the Setswana word for father is also Ra. It is therefore not surprising that among the Ga people, those at Teshi claim to have migrated from a town called Boma, on the shores of the Congo River, those at Labadi from Boni Island off the coast of Nigeria, and those from Gamashi from Benin City in eastern Nigeria. While these legends from remembered history cannot be proven at the time, certainly can be proven now. And the final number 1 spot is also in West Africa with Bamileke people of Cameroon at 96% to 100% frequency. The Bamileke of Cameroon are also descendants of Tikar. The Bamileke origins was traced to Egypt, migrated to what is now northern Cameroon between the 11th and 14th centuries. They are a large and diverse population. They are very economically strong and independent. Known for great business skills as well as rich culture. Based on historians, the Tikar's ancestors was living long time ago in the Arabian Peninsula in the area between Yemen and Palestine. Some wars between Arabs make the Tikar's ancestors to migrate in the area between Sudan and Egypt. They found themselves settling in Saudi Arabia, but with the domination of Islam on the rise, the ancestors of Tikars was surrounded and ordered to give all their magic power to the people in charge of Islam. All the precious belongings of the Tikar was taken and buried in a place that the Muslims consider today to be Mecca, under the black stone Kaaba. But some of the Tikars was smart enough to hide some of the symbols of the Tikar. One of these power symbols was a magic arrow weapon that could fly, and another was a type of small carpet that could transport people. They moved Egypt, where they were established for a long time, to Sudan, to the Adamawa region, to the actual plain of Tikar in Cameroon. Adamawa is between Nigeria and northern part of Cameroon. It is from Adamawa where the Tikar ancestors with the Princess Wouden migrated to create the actual Tikar land. Religion and politics are not easily distinguished. The Ba-Mileke king is considered divine and responsible for the health and well-being of his subjects. He is aided in his religious duties by the Bandansi, the men of the House of God, a secret society. 3 other groups are also important in religious practice. Lineage heads, as custodians of ancestral skulls, control access to proprietary rights. Diviners and spirit mediums are active in determining the need for ceremonies and in healing. Do you see now, siblings, we are not just descendants of slaves, we are actually direct descendants of ancient Egyptian pharaohs, and because of the Bantus' bidirectional journey, West Africans holds the highest frequency. And, being a high DNA frequency being, to a particular ancestor, or source, is a greater gift, and challenge at the same time. Because whatever attributes that ancestral source had, you now have. And it's all stored within your genetic DNA within each chromosome, and SNP is a dormant trait, waiting for you to unlock. And what this means, Bantus, is that you, and the ancestors before you, were genetically made to be keepers of this land. The primordial walkers of this crest. The melanated embodiment of consciousness for this soil. The maintainers of the animal kingdom. The procreator of lands. The trusted treasurers for our minerals to form. The enlightened source of guidance. The balance of nature order itself. That was our covenant, those were the cosmic duties to uphold, but instead, they, them, we, us, all, eventually turned away from the laws of nature as a whole. Now we must pick up the pieces. Time is warping out of our magnetic field, we must as a whole start, thinking organically, geometrically, symbolically, and most of all on a spiritually conscious level, for the future of our children, children and their children. Bantus, what makes you so special, is that you are the only group that is related to all races. To give you an example, take a look at my ancestors' Afroasiatic journey, who literally left footprints in every continent. As you can see, my roots were mostly in Essen. Now, look at what I became after slavery. An Afro-Caribbean, of Barbados. So just remember, we have the ancient DNA frequency to connect to the highest of Most High. So walk in your power. Know who you are. Connect to the ancestors. Embrace your magic, for the betterment of this world. And use your neuromelanin to connect to nature and animals, it'll tell you what it needs, if you're on the right frequency. Bantus have the right frequency, but it's been blocked, under a mental spell, just like the deities. As above, so below. As you sleep, they sleep. As you awake, they awake. And as they wake, the holiest spirit of light comes forth. As always, let's be the light that rise out of darkness.